Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, keeping our focus on the economy. We're joined now by Tilewa Adebajo, who is an economic policy analyst and also the CEO of the CFG Advisory. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Suleiman.
Well, looking at these policies, we just listened to Dr. Dikwelu talking about how they need to bring about some of these policies. Yes, we're in a recession, but do you see us or any of these policies that they say they are bringing to bear? Do you see any of them bringing us out of this, and how soon?
Well, first of all, I think one of the most important things in any financial market, any economy, or any business is confidence. And if investors have lost confidence, business people have lost confidence, then it's important that you need to restore confidence. That's the priority. And I think what has happened is that most investors, both foreign and local investors, have lost confidence in the economy as a result of the recession. And that has been as a result of the delay in the timing of these policies. Yes, the policies have been stated, we understand where it's going, but I think he mentioned the issue of coordination. Most people had not seen that coordination. And no matter how, if you're putting out the right policies, but the timing of those policies are wrong, and you're not getting it right in terms of your timing, then you lose the confidence of investors and the financial markets, and that is what has happened. So what is important is that you need to restore confidence. Nothing wrong with the policies, but there's a confidence issue.
So what would you advise they do first in order to begin to restore this confidence? Adjust how the policies come through, or the people who are driving the policies?
Both. First of all, there's a misalignment between monetary policy and fiscal policy. As you know, the central bank is going ahead and increasing interest rates at a time of a recession, which is more or less an issue of contraction and tightening, while on the fiscal side, the finance ministry is trying to provide a stimulus. So the policies are at odds with each other, and I think that there needs to be a serious alignment there. That's number one. And when he talked about these issues of interest rates with the banks, I think we need to address that issue, because the sort of inflation we have to understand there are two types of inflation. There's the demand pool inflation, which is when we have a situation which we say too much money chasing too few goods. But at 30% level of unemployment, you can't have too much money chasing too few goods. So it's clear that the sort of inflation we have is what we will call a cost push inflation as a result of factors of production. So increases in prices, devaluation, and all those issues. So we need to stem that tide and understand what we have. It's also important that government needs to articulate its policy on a general level. What sort of policy is this government facing? Are you looking at a privatization? Clearly, government has challenges with revenues. It's only been able to meet about 50% of its revenues this year from the budget. And basically, the level of deficit financing is going to be a lot, much more. And I think it's important that we get along with that program as the advisor said, ramping up to be able to install confidence. And as he also admitted, economics is about leading indicators and lagging indicators. And a lot of all these things they're talking about, we're not going to start seeing the results until probably the end of the first quarter of next year.
That brings us to what people would want to call the low-hanging fruits. How best can we, jumpstart some of these policies that will bring or signal this kind of confidence, especially from the foreign investors?
Well, from the foreign investors, that's not very difficult. There was a time when there was what you call a JP Morgan bond index. And if I look at my numbers right, there was a time when we had close to $25 billion of foreign direct portfolio investments in this country. Because of the misalignment of our policies, a lot of this money left. At the time we left the JP Morgan bond index, when they gave us the warning, we didn't engage them. And I think we're paying for that now. We're now out of that bond index. So that is the benchmark for most portfolio investors to go. So if you want to see $25–30 billion back in this economy, then we have to take steps to get back onto that JP Morgan bond index. If you get back on the index, most of the portfolio managers sitting in their offices, they don't need approval from anybody. Once that index says Nigeria is on that index, then that's a green light for them to come in here.
Do you see any intervention or any of this helping the private sector, policies from government now?
Well, the private sector, that is the issue of articulation of overall general policy. Is this government looking at the private sector to lead the economy? And I think that's a question that the government must answer very quickly. Are they going to look at privatization? Are they going to take a look at concessions? Because clearly, in terms of financing the infrastructure deficit, there's a limit to which government can go. The revenues are not coming in. Only 50% of the projected budgeted revenue is in now. We're deficit financing the other half of the budget this year. So there's a lot of challenges with government. And we're spending close to about 40% of our revenues maybe servicing debt. So the margin and the cap is becoming very, very tight. So there is need for not only private sector investment, both locally, but also foreign direct investment to be able to assist government with a lot of the gap that they need to manage.
Let me bring in Mark Boy. Mark Boy.
Well, just wondering, where do you think, this money should be invested? Because government is also taking issue with where it is that foreign investors put their monies. They say that in many instances, they put it where they can easily get it out. For instance, the stock market. Where do you think that foreign investors should be putting their money? Because people say that they want to be able to feel the impact of these investments coming in.
Thank you very much. That's a very relevant question. And I think that you have to understand that these investors are not charity organizations. The reason why they're coming here in the first place is to get a return. If you take a look at the American economies and all those things, the interest rates are very low, maybe 2%, 1%. So the returns in those markets are not very strong. If we offer them better returns here, then they're likely to come. And we have to distinguish very clearly between portfolio investments, which comes mostly into your stock market and your bond markets, which we can easily see about 30 billion of that. What that sort of investment does is to help us stabilize our foreign exchange mechanisms. The real investments which you're talking about is what you call foreign direct investments. A couple of years back, Nigeria was probably doing about $9 to $10 billion a year in foreign direct investments, which was the largest in Africa at the point in time, and that has dropped significantly to maybe about $2 billion now or less. So there are many structural issues we need to address, and one of the key things we need to address is the petroleum industry bill. This petroleum is only 14% of our GDP, but as you know, contributes a significant amount to our revenues. If you do not pass the petroleum industry bill, with all due respect, I see all kinds of bills in the National Assembly, and I think that the bill that we need to pass very quickly in this country is we need to restructure our petroleum industry. If we restructure the petroleum industry, then we'll see investments not only in oil, but more importantly in gas, because it is the gas that we need to do the power. And government clearly does not have money to invest in that sector. So the only way you need to do is to get the enabling environment right. So if you get that petroleum industry bill right, you will see significant investments in the oil and gas industry that can easily, and the deals in the oil and gas industry they're not small deals. Average size of those deals are about $2 billion. So if you're taking a look at a deal, 3, 4, 5 deals in the gas sector, you're looking at $6-7 billion easily. But if you do not pass that petroleum industry bill, the foreign investors are not going to come. And those are the investors I think Mark is referring to as those long-term investors who are foreign direct investors with capital that are ready to stay here for the next 5-6 years. You need to go and attract those guys, and the way you attract those guys is to put the right policies in place. Right now, we're not unsung. on that sector.
More so when there's competition along even West Africa and other African countries. Well, always a pleasure to have here Tilewa Adebajo is an economic policy analyst and also the CEO of the CFG Advisory. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back in a moment. We're still focusing on this anyway, so don't go away.